Hi everyone, welcome to Dave's Bonsai. On today's show, I'm moving some trees. It's time to mulch. Welcome to Bonsai Acres. Welcome everyone to the backyard on a beautiful, again, stunning Minnesota day. Doesn't get much better. The sun's out, good temperatures, low humidity for the moment, rain's on the horizon. I'm gonna mulch this today to get ready for an open house that's gonna happen here at the house. And I'm gonna have my friends come by and we're gonna talk bonsai, might sell a few trees, a little swapping could be going on. I've got the mulch all laid down, making the trees pop and look pretty good. Now here's the key. If you've got a recycling center near you, don't go to the big box stores and buy it per bag, 2, 3, 4, even $5 per bag. You see these bins here, everybody? About 2 bags, 1 maybe 2, 1 maybe 2, 2, 4, 6, 8, 9, 10. Let's go 10 bags. Would have cost me over 30 to 40 bucks for this. At my local recycling center where you can bring yard waste, pick up rocks, pick up new mulch. All of this, a 5 spot, everybody. Whew. Yeah, sometimes I'm cheap because I have to spend my money on bonsai, not the preparations for it. We're gonna go talk pots again today. So a lot of pottery on the Expo from July 26th of 2025, a few weeks back for as I'm recording this. We talked to a lot of people and showcased some pottery. So in this case, we're gonna go visit my friend down in southeastern Minnesota, and that is the one and only Sara Rayner. Check it out, y'all.
Let's start from the very beginning. So you were a potter first and then went to bonsai, and you're exclusively bonsai now. But
right.
How did it start for you? Bonsai trees, pottery, or where did this all start for you?
So when I was probably 26, 27, my husband actually just saw a billboard with an international bonsai convention in Minneapolis, which never happened before. It's never happened since, but it just happened to be that day he saw it. Yeah. And so we went, and I had a little 1-year-old on my back, and I had a 9-month-old in my belly, so it was pretty hard to walk around and enjoy it the way I would have liked to have, but I was just blown away. And that was totally just trees. There was no pots involved. The pots to me were typical brown, unglazed, and not of any interest to me as far as creativity or something I wanted to do, just the trees. Yeah. So back then, of course, there was no internet. I went to the library and got a Sunset bonsai book for bonsai. That's all I could find was the Sunset bonsai book, and I did a few trees very poorly, but that's, I had no teaching. I wasn't part of a club, just reading the book, and thought, well, I'll make a few pots and put my trees in it. And of course they were just god awful, because switching from what I was used to making, which was functional, very decorative porcelain, shiny glazes, all that, that didn't lend itself to bonsai pots, and I wasn't interested in switching. Yeah. But then I finally went to a meeting, took some of those first bonsai pots for fun up to the auction, and the response was just ridiculous. I mean, not because they were good pots, but because they were different. It was something you could put your pots in, or your trees into, that wasn't what everybody else was putting their trees into. And I knew they weren't great, but I knew that there was some potential there to do something with it other than what I was used to making. And money wasn't the drive. It was just, well, they're so excited. Let me see what I can do that's different, and compared to what people are used to buying. So I went off into it, made a couple years of just horrific pots, and they really were. And I'm not downsizing. I'm just saying I didn't know anything about it, and I didn't do the trees, so I didn't really understand the nuances that a bonsai pot needed, which you really need to do the trees along with making pots. And so the more I worked with my trees, the better I got at understanding pot design. And I finally signed up for my first convention in, I want to say 91 or 2 or something like that. And I did 3 conventions the first year, which is a lot. I did Chicago. Des Moines had the MABA, very first MABA show. Memphis, which was a Kimura show. He came there. So I was brand new to it. And here's this, big guy who I didn't really know that he was that big, but the enthusiasm, especially in Memphis, was so overwhelming that at that point I kind of knew that I really needed to get down, figure out the problems, get better at it. And you know, there's no financial advantage for the first, at least for me, for the first 5-10 years. I mean, you know, you're just learning. You make a few bucks at the convention, you go home, you try to do better. And then pretty soon every year, it got better and better and better. I'm still trying to figure out problems. I'm still trying to better my designs. I still have awful failures. You know, it's a learning process.
What are some of, not the failures, you don't have to highlight your failures, but what are some of the challenges still that all this time later, what still goes wrong in your mind?
Well, just sometimes just the fact that clay can be bad and your firings can be off. You might, it's like writer's block. You might lose some of that momentum you have for the way you want to kind of take one idea to another that gets better, and then all of a sudden you've kind of exhausted it, and then you're like, okay, now what? And sometimes it just doesn't happen for a while. But some of my biggest challenges are trying to keep things fresh. Instead of making the same designs over and over, I need it fresh for me because I can't stand making past work. Right. Well, not necessarily cookie cutter, just trying to repeat past work. It never looks good and never seems right. And the other thing is my customers don't want to see my past work. You know, once in a while they'll say, why don't you make things like you used to? But most of the time they want to see what's new. What do you have that's new? So that challenge of keeping it fresh is big, but it also is what like makes the best surprises.
Now, we were talking off camera that when you started, there were maybe 3 or 4 of you, and now it's unbelievably exploded. So how has that added that angle of like, it's hard to get people interested in stuff because there's so much.
There's so much. Yeah. Well, I mean, I still have a very competitive edge. You know, I mean, that's just part of the thing. I do. The competition is partly for me, but it's partly because you want to stay on top of your game, whatever. And I'm not on top, but I'm saying you want to stay on your own top of the game and not slip a whole lot and feel like your work is not as good as it was. So having a lot of other people doing it actually is a driving force, you know, and I'll see work that other people do that I think is just so amazing that it gives me ideas. You know, I'm getting my inspiration from other people. They might say they're getting it from me, but it's equal, you know. So I mean, there's that challenge, but I like that, and that's the good part of it. And I'm kind of at the end. I mean, I'm not saying I'm ready to retire, but I'm 67 years old. And I've been doing it since I'm 30, so you know, if things happen that way, it's time. But in the meantime, it's still a creative thing, and it's still a driving force. So,
what has been one of your kind of successes where you were super proud, or like, man, this really went well? I'm sure there's a ton of them, but is there a couple that stand out, or?
Yeah, with a tree more than pottery.
Oh, really?
With a tree more than pottery. But I do have one quick pottery story. So the pottery story was in DC in 2005. It was the International Bonsai Convention. I don't know if you have your history with that or not, but everybody from every country comes, and the Japanese come. And the Japanese have a habit of picking up designs and things, like one of each, to take back and either look at or ask people about or copy or whatever. And they do that with woodenware, and they do it with artware, they do it with all kinds of different art forms. And one fellow came through with an interpreter and picked up maybe 8 small of my pots, and he really liked them. And he says, people don't make glazes like this anymore. So he took them home with them, and that made me feel great. That was like, all right, you know, a Japanese guy liked my glazes and nobody's doing it. So that was a biggie. But my biggest thrill was when I did a tree. It was I don't do a lot of trees, but it was one that I really worked hard on. And I did a good job with it. And I took it to a show, and Bill Valvanis came over and asked me that, who worked on that? Who did your tree? Who did your tree? It looks like Kimura. He said, Kimura didn't work on that? Or was it Maz that worked on that? I go, no, that was all my tree, you know? And he goes, well, it looks like he did. And I just thought I was gonna die, you know? Yeah, and that's 15, 20 years ago too. And I, you know,
but what a compliment.
I was like, my mouth was hanging up, and I'm going, oh. It was it was a very high moment in my life.
Do you have that tree still?
I do not. I sold it because I gave up doing trees for various reasons. And then 3 years later, the guy told me he killed it. So.
Oh man, I was waiting to see it was in some museum somewhere.
Well, it ended up in the National a couple of the Nationals ago, and then he wintered it over inside, which I always winter my trees, winter hardy trees outside. And I just think you have more variables to keep a tree alive when you have it not frozen in the ground, when it really wants to be frozen in the ground.
What tree was it?
It was a yew.
Okay.
And I dug it up from my parents' foundation, and from one little branch was all that was living. So it was completely developed from nothing, you know.
Awesome.
So yeah. So
what a success.
yeah, so those are my two big moments.
Yeah. Fantastic. Yeah. So now the daily, I was talking to a potter yesterday, and he made the joke about people using the phrase "live in the dream," because usually it's sarcastic.
Right.
Most people say "live in the dream," they're kind of joking.
Right.
You know, in this facility here, that it's just so, in my opinion, so quaint and so unassuming. And you come in here and just see this greatness. Like, how has your day today as a potter been the last decade? I mean, how is it for you?
As far as my feelings of living the dream?
Just kind of doing what you want to do and doing your art. Has it been everything you've hoped it would be?
I never had any hopes. And I never did. I never had any dreams of it. It just evolved from starting out when I was 17 making pots into this. So I don't see that living the dream transformation into what I'm doing. It's just that's just my life. I mean, it's a hard job. Yeah. It's the only thing I can imagine myself doing. Not that I couldn't work for somebody else, but my mind doesn't work that way. Yeah. You know, it's really more on this spectrum. And you know, I mean, you put in 7 days a week. It's full time. I don't go anywhere. You know, that's all I do. But that's choice, you know. And but if you say living the American dream as far as having a business and making a living at it, doing something you like to do in America, sure, that's what it is, right? Yeah. But you know, it's a tough thing. Sure. It certainly is tough. But I'm fully aware of how fortunate I am. But a lot of it comes from support. Yeah. This is not something you come out of school and you are able to set up a studio and go full time into it. I had a lot of support from my family with it, and then when I got married with my husband, he was the breadwinner, and I, you know, still was learning it, not making money, still learning it until I finally was able to actually make a living at it. So, you know, living the dream is great, but for arts, having some kind of support is almost essential. Yeah.
So the phrase "it takes a village" was pretty true in your case.
It's absolutely true. Yeah. I don't ever look at this and say, look what I did. I never do that. I was given an opportunity. Yeah.
Do you have any desire to have a certain legacy? I mean, what do you want people to think about Sara Rayner pots?
Oh, I have no idea. It doesn't even come to mind.
No one's ever asked you yet.
No, nobody's ever asked me. I don't even really think of it. I guess when I'm done, you're done, and people forget about you. I mean, that's the way life is, right? When you stop doing something, people people forget about it. I mean, sure, my pots will still be used, and people might think of that, but you know, that'll pass too. You know, everything kind of fades away after time.
Is there anything you want to complete before that time? Is there something that you've been striving for pot-wise that you haven't nailed yet that you want to? Do you have any of that?
I don't think I have that, but I still have things in my head that I have not completed. Okay. You know, I have ideas that actually extend so far down the line, I think I'll do those next year. Because of the time involved, and because I'm getting ready for shows, and I only have, you know, I have to do some production wear that I know is sellable, even though it's still creative for me, I still have to kind of stay within that area of selling things to make a living. Yeah. But when I come up with things that I'd like to kind of just do for myself, still bonsai pots, but just ideas, that's always kind of a year down down there. So I maybe thinking about retiring, but I'm not done.
Have you ever done any commission work, or this is just your art form and people take it or leave it?
No, I did a lot of commission work because I needed money. I mean, you know, not only that, but I also wanted to do it because people are asking me to do it, and that's how you get your name out there, and that's how you're being part of the scene. Okay. But I've never thought I did a good job with it. I mean, it's too, you're confined into this spot of measurements and glaze and shape. Yeah. When I make pots, it's freeform. You know, I just have a different size balls of clay I work with, and I go from small to big, and maybe this one will go out a little more, and this will do that, and I don't have to measure it. I don't think about anything, and then I do my best work because I'm just concentrating on that form, you know. But when you are commissioned to do something, at least for me, I mean, other people do a great job. Yeah. You're usually repeating a shape because they want one like this, and then it starts to look overworked because it's not. Yeah, it's not it's not 24 inches. It needs to be 25 inches. So now I got to make another one. Yeah. Because this one's not going to work. I can see it's not big enough, and no, the lip's not right. So it isn't fun for me, and I usually am disappointed. sometimes they're happy, sometimes like they can see that, that it was pushed into that.
How has pottery changed in bonsai, if it has? Are there some goods and bad changes? But has there been a major shift in bonsai, or just that there's so much more pottery out there?
Well, I think people are using their own approach to pottery and then fitting it into bonsai. Okay. So you're getting super non-traditional shapes and surfaces and colors because of that. And that, a lot of people are drawn towards that. A lot of people don't like it. They want something that's traditional with it. Yeah. Mine's kind of somewhere in between, between being, traditional shapes that'll work with bonsai and having flair to it. That's my own little add to it. Yeah. But a lot of people, especially the great numbers recently, are their own style just turned into a bonsai pot. And I kind of switched all that when I was doing it. I took, this is not my style that I used to do. This is nothing like I used to do. Okay. So I completely switched because I do want to make a living at it, and I do like being, making pots that work for bonsai. Yeah. So a lot of the pots out there now are they may be, a lot of them are works of art, they're gorgeous, but I don't always envision a tree in them. And so I think there's more of that than there is people trying to do traditional shapes, maybe Japanese kind of background shapes. And there's a few on the West Coast that do an excellent job of taking traditional Japanese techniques and making beautiful Japanese type pots. Sure. And I love them. They're beautiful, right? But it's not, that's more of the unusual one. Yeah.
And do you think there's more open-mindedness to the fact that we are having a
lot
more variety?
With a group of people. A lot of people really don't like it, and you'll see it on, if you look at forums, you'll read about people commenting on pots, and you'll see that there's, a lot of excitement for that new stuff because it's new, and there's a lot of people who just cannot seem to use it for bonsai. Yeah. I mean, I need my pots to be really different and unusual, but they have to work. They have to work with the tree. They just have to, yeah.
Typically, do you see people putting in your pots, or what style of trees or variety of trees do you think fit best with your pots?
Well, I mean, they're traditional enough that if I have a good variety of shapes and sizes and glazes, pretty much you can put anything in whatever it looks like it works. Unglazed containers for conifers and whatever. I mean, something like that for a maple or an elm or something. So, I mean, for everything, I think I tend to make some things that aren't always easy to find, like a really deep pot. They're a little harder to find. Most bonsai pots have a certain average depth. Sure. Then it mixes and matches, but most of them. So if I make really deep or really shallow forests or something, then I'll do pretty well because they can't always find it every place else. Right. But as far as, varieties of trees, I think hopefully you can find something, with what I have to put anything in.
You're going to be at a couple of events this year. You head to Chicago and you're heading to Nationals, all things going well. So tell me about the shows.
So, well, the shows I've always done Chicago in August until Bill Valvanis's show. And then I don't have enough inventory to do Chicago every single year because these are such big shows. It wipes me out. I used to do a ton of shows and they were smaller shows, so I always had something left over for another show. Yeah. But, being older and traveling is very tough. It just is. And so doing 2 shows one year, I end up having to wait 2 more years to do 2 more shows because it takes that long to get my inventory together. Yep. Plus I have a website I have to feed. Yeah. And then I have people stop down, and I have sometimes group pots I send out to people that want to take them to a show. Yeah. So it goes, right, it definitely goes, and I don't need to add shows to it, but those are really, they're big shows. They kind of carry me through for the whole 2 years, and then I can relax.
Don't buy a pot just to buy a pot. You really are a firm believer of, find the right one and wait until you find it.
Right.
So how do you balance that, or what's your opinion?
Well, for people that don't have huge collections, I tend to go that don't buy finished pots for your show pot for your tree that you're just developing. And I get a lot of people that come down, they're excited, they want to buy a pot, but they got this little pot that hasn't really, or tree that hasn't really been trained.
Stick in a pot.
And I tell them, just stick them in a larger training pot. You don't even know what the style is, so that don't have a shelf full of expensive pots. Now that's for somebody who doesn't have very many trees. For people that are just, they're lifers into it with hundreds and hundreds of trees, they're buying pots because they want to have stock. Yeah. Because when transplanting time comes, you want to pick and choose. So that I totally get. Yeah.
Yep.
So they don't have a tree in mind. A lot of people buy pots without a tree in mind because they have so many trees and they're such enthusiasts. They need it.
And when they go to repot and they need this kind of pot,
yeah,
they're looking, hey, I have that kind.
Right. And plus, it's a sellable thing. If you get out of it, you got something you can resell. It's not like it's wasted money.
For sure. What do you see bonsai? Where do you see it going? Do you have any thoughts to like? Is it?
You know, I don't know. I mean, I think that some of the masters we have now that are here are giving more permission to have more natural-looking trees, the Western style. Yeah. Certainly, Ryan Neal has facilitated that.
Yeah.
I still think you need to stick with some of the basics. I have a real firm belief both with pottery and with not necessarily Japanese style, but traditional Chinese, Japanese, traditional styles of what works for a tree. It's just like pots. It's what works for a pot. You can't get too far away with what's balanced in a tree, And so balance is the main key. It can be a very unusual looking tree that doesn't fit all the norms. But if it's balanced and it's natural looking, that's fine. So, I mean, I don't really know enough about, I guess, what people are doing out there as far as trees. I look at them, I see, anywhere between beginning to professional looking trees. So I'm not so sure there's a huge change in that. But I mean, we're a different country for sure. It's going to be a little different.
There seems to just be a little bit more acceptance to the outliers, and my only example there is when you see images of the Pacific bonsai and Michael Hagedorn stuff.
Right.
I mean, there's an artist.
They're artistic trees.
He's showing a tree that looks like it's floating in the air with chains hanging down.
Right, but it's balanced, right? And it's done. It's executed well, and it's finished. The refinement is all there. So that to me that's way more fun than Japanese cookie cutter trees. Yeah. Way more fun. I'm not a big fan of Japanese cookie cutter trees. I even like the Chinese style a whole lot more. There's more art in that to me. I mean, definitely. But still, with whatever you're looking at, it needs to have certain things about it that fit the aesthetics, for your eye and such.
Not giving away trade secrets, but do you have any thoughts on if people are going to get into pottery, what are some things that they should be aware of, or should they just dive in and go for it?
Well, I mean, they certainly can dive in and go for it, but I do think that doing the trees well will help make your pottery better. I mean, it's so easy to make pots and fire it now. You can get a wheel, you can get a small electric kiln. You don't even need a permit, I don't think, to put it in your basement.
Yeah.
You might, but it's different than a gas-fired kiln.
Sure.
So it's very accessible. There's classes, there's centers that you can go to, and pottery is a basic kind of a thing that people kind of connect to. Yeah. It just is gardening, pottery, bonsai, whatever. Get your hands dirty, make something, fire it, and it's this concrete, three-dimensional thing you can use. So that appeal I totally get. Yeah. But if you're looking at it to be serious, to make like I said, a really balanced and artistic and well-executed pot, you're going to have to kind of do the trees with it and do it well to get that finished pot. If you want to make them for yourself just to have them, that's fun. That would be a gas. Yeah. I don't have fun necessarily with this. This is a job.
It is.
So, if it's your hobby, you should have fun.
Yeah. Job, or I'd say for you, more lifestyle.
Lifestyle,
right?
Kind of like a farmer, right? Yeah, it is. Yeah, it's a job. It's what I do. Yeah.
Well, that's all I have. I so appreciate your time, and I will for sure see you if you're there at Nationals.
Okay.
I'll pop in and say hello.
All right. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Welcome to Bonsai Acres.